Om Jnanatimirandasya Jnananjana चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे, हरे राम 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 हरे हरे। So we are resuming our discussion um, from the 7.7 verse where Krishna brought out a very important point that there is nothing actually beyond Krishna when it comes to understanding the absolute truth. Mattah parataram nanyat kinchit asti dhananjaya. And then Krishna gives an analogy that Mai sarvam idam protam sutre manigana iva. So the analogy that Krishna gives is just like a necklace. If you see there is a beautiful arrangement that there is a beautiful arrangement of string that one can wear and be attracted to and can appreciate. But what one does not see is that there is an invisible thread that is putting the beads together. And so Krishna is just like that invisible thread that is putting everything that we come across in his cosmic manifestation. Um, and therefore, we have to understand that in this way, everything is resting upon Krishna, or everything is being maintained by Krishna. And there is no truth that is actually superior to this Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. So we can actually just elaborate on this point from another angle that, let's see. So another angle of elaboration is that when we talk about the absolute truth or absolute reality, generally that can be understood to be of three kinds. You can say there is a transcendent, then there is immanent, single n, and then there is a collection. So a simple way to drive home this point would be with the help of an analogy. So if you take sun, so from the vantage point of an observer, so if there is a room in which the observer is situated with a window, so one may just experience the sun in terms of the collection of, or the collective energy of the sun, which is the sunlight or the heat that is emanating from the sun. So one may come in touch with the sun in the form of the energy of the sun. So there is energetic manifestation. So energetic manifestation of the sun. But if this person steps outside the house, outside the room, outside the house, and goes outside, then he locates the source of that heat and light and gets acquainted with the immanent feature of the sun, or the localized feature of the sun. So this is the localized manifestation or conception. But ultimately, the best experience of the sun can happen if this person can actually enter into the sun globe and find out the detail, or what is actually beyond this observed reality, and that is the transcend reality. And one may find that, oh, there is a sun god whose bodily effulgence is actually getting sensed as a sunlight. So this is the personal realization of the reality. So likewise, so here Krishna, who is standing before Arjuna, is presenting himself as that Krishna, the Supreme Person, the personality of Godhead. So Krishna as a person. So that is the transcendental reality. And at the same time, one can see the Krishna may be present in everyone's heart as the Paramatma, or the localized feature. And the same Krishna may be present as his own energetic manifestation in terms of Brahman, where we find every single aspect of our experience can be expressed in terms of the energy of someone. And that someone is Krishna that is being pointed out. So, in other words, there is a hierarchy here. And therefore, Matta Paratram Nanyat Kinchit Asti Dhananjaya, when Krishna is saying, there is no truth superior to me. So that me, Krishna, as a person speaking to Arjuna. And therefore, that is the highest reality that is being established by Krishna in the 7.7. That's another way of appreciating the 7.7 verse, that Krishna is establishing his um, supreme personality as the highest realization of the absolute truth. Okay, so now Krishna gives more elaboration moving forward. So further elaboration on this verse comes through by establishing himself as the essence of everything. So something is great is not just because the the different qualities of that object that we come in contact with, but something is great because there is Krishna, or Krishna's own Shakti or own energy is pervading through that object, and that is making that object great. So in this way, Krishna is the primordial factor behind the greatness and the essence of everything. So we just learned about how Krishna is acting as an invisible thread. Now Krishna is giving example of how Krishna is acting as that invisible thread by giving some examples. So here are some examples. So Krishna gives, I think, about 14 examples in this section. So let's first go through the examples and then we will try to unpack. So the examples that Krishna gives are, so Krishna is saying, Raso aham apsu kaunteya. I am the taste of water. Then Prabha asmi. So this is the first example that Krishna gives, that I am the, sorry. Wrong place. The first example is, I am the taste of water, Krishna is saying. The second is, Prabha asmi shashi suryayo. So we can come in touch with the heating quality of the sunlight or the cooling quality of the moonlight, but the essence is Krishna, the light. So the light of the sun and the moon is what is Krishna's own presence that is manifesting that. And then third, among the Vedic mantras, Om is considered to be a very all-pervasive sort of mantra, and therefore very prominent, and it captures the essence of all the Vedic mantras, and therefore Krishna is saying, I'm the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. Then Shabda Khe. So Pranavaha Sarva Vedeshu, and then Shabda Khe. Shabda means sound. Khe means in ether. So Krishna is saying, I am the sound in ether. Then Paurusham Nrishu. So we can say Nrishu means, you can say, in human beings. So Krishna is the Paurusham, or the ability. Okay, so we have covered 5 examples. Krishna is continuing. Punyo Gandha Prithivyamscha. So Krishna is the original fragrance of the earth. Then Tejas Chasmi Vibhagasho. Vibhavasho. So Teja means the heat, or the strength or effulgence in the fire. Vibhavaso means fire. So that heat, the quality of heat, is the essence within the fire. Krishna is saying, I am that. Then Jivanam Sarva Bhuteshu. So when we find any sentient object, what is the source of life? So Krishna is saying, I am the life in that living object. Then Tapaschasmi Tapasvishu. So among those who are ascetics, what is the essence within the ascetic? It is their quality of penance. Then Bijam Mam Sarva Bhutanam. Krishna is saying, I am the original seed of all existences. So we covered 9, right, so far. So this is the 10th example. So Bijam Mam Sarva Bhutanam Vidhi Partha Sanatanam. So Sanatanam is referring to this original. So he is the original seed for everything. Then Buddhir Buddhi Matam Asmi. So if you find an intelligent person, the essence or the intelligence of that intelligent person is Krishna. Then Tejas Vinam Aham. So we find someone very powerful. So the power is coming from Krishna. Then Balam Balavatam Chaham Kam Raga Vivarjitam. So Krishna is the strength of the strong that is devoid of passion and desire. So it is not just the bad sort of strength of the strong, but it's the strength in the good sense. The strength in the good sense is devoid of passion and desire. In other words, free from the tendency for exploitation. So when that kind of strength is manifested, Krishna is saying, I am that. So this is the 13th example. And then the 14th one is, so if you talk about the Kama aspect, so Kama Raga Vivarjita, but if you find Kama, what kind of Kama can represent Krishna? That kind of calm which does not violate religious principles. So Dharma aviruddho bhuteshu kamo asmi bhardarshava. Krishna is saying that I am that desire, or you can say when that sex life which does not violate religious principles. So this is the 14th example that Krishna gives. So in this way, Krishna is the essence in everything. So now let's just try to unpack this a little more. So we can unpack this by by just writing down some of these so that you can see how that particular verse, that Sutre Manigana Iva, that how Krishna is like an invisible thread within whatever we find. So, first example that Krishna gives is that Krishna is saying, I am the taste of water. Okay. Then the second example that Krishna gives is that Prabha Asmi Shashi Suryayo. So he's the light of sun and the moon. Then he says that Pranavaha Sarva Vedeshu. So he is the Om. So he is the sound vibration Om within Vedic sounds. And then he's saying that Shabda Ke is the sound within ether. And then he's saying, I am Parusham Rishu. I am the ability of human beings. Okay. So now if you draw a line here, you will see that this is what we actually physically see. So this is the manifested reality. So this is going on. And this is the unmanifested essence. Of course, we are coming in touch with, let's say, when we are drinking water, we are tasting water. And sometimes people say that water, the primordial quality of water is that it should be tasteless. And usually that what we experience taste is more because of the adulterant that is present within the water. That's what we are tasting. But we find that the water, the pure water, does have the taste. And we also can understand that when we are eating something, generally the taste within any kind of eatables is coming because of the mixing of water within it. It's the taste of water that is actually brought out through different varieties of food substances. So in other words, the essence of the water is actually in the taste. So that's another way of looking at it. So now this is an unmanifested essence because these are belonging to our subjective reality. And how exactly we are experiencing this, it is quite inconceivable. And it is because of this unmanifested essence, which is basically Krishna investing his potency into it. It's because of Krishna's invisible potency that we are able to come in contact with the unmanifested essence, and we are able to extract out that from the manifested reality. I wanted to just go a little bit into how how these different elemental um, building blocks that we discussed previously, where Krishna is saying that Krishna was saying that he is the origin of all those material elements, that bhumi rapo anulo vayu kham mano buddhir evacha ahankaram ityame bhinna prakriti rashtada. So Krishna explained how he is the origin of all the 8 material elements, out of which 5 of them were physical material elements or gross material elements, and then 3 of them were subtle material elements, the mind, intelligence, and ego. So Krishna there identified himself as the origin of those material elements. So here we find that Krishna is going through some of those material elements, like water was covered, ether was covered, and we saw that later on the fire came into picture, Prithvi came into picture, which is the earth came into picture, right? So with the exception of air, all the material elements were covered, and then Krishna was identifying the himself here as the essence. And previously, Krishna said that he is the origin. So in other words, if you combine these two sections, so Krishna is both the origin plus the essence of all these fundamental building blocks. So I just wanted to just show you how these um, sense objects, so these are essentially also referred to as the sensations or tanmatra, or the sense object that we try to experience, or when we attribute as an experience of reality within this material world, all we are doing is that we are experiencing these tanmatras, or the sense objects that are present within the corresponding material elements. So taste is a tanmatra, the sound is a tanmatra. Likewise, the fire has the quality of the heat, or the you can say the quality of the sight, and the earth has a quality of the smell. So these are all referred to as the tanmatra, and Krishna is saying that I am the essence. So he is the essence, or the tanmatras, which are present within the elements, and he is also simultaneously the origin of these elements. So let's just look at the way the tanmatra comes into the picture. If you see, so generally there are our universe is made up of three factors. There is the Adi Daivika, then there is Adhyatmika, and Adi Bhautika. So you see the words here are, there is the Daivika, which is basically derived from the Devas. There is Atmika, meaning like the subjective aspect, and there's the Bhautika, which is more related to the elements that make up the overall creation. So generally, like all the physical manifestation that we find around can be divided into three basic categories like this: the Adidaivika, Adhyatmika, and Adibhautika. So this is what are you can see the perfect sense, which is basically who can actually perfectly sense everything. Like suppose we come in contact with an object of taste, we can only say that I'm getting some kind of an imperfect sensation of the real taste that that object can offer. So we are always getting a sort of like a partial or incomplete understanding or incomplete experience of any object that we are coming in contact with. But there is a particular category of individuals who can perfectly sense everything, and they are essentially called the demigods. So the demigods like the Indra, Chandra, Varuna, these are all, like there are 330 million of them that have been empowered by the Supreme Lord to take charge of the different properties of matter. So they are basically having the perfect sense. Adhyatmika is basically our realm, like it's our senses, which is generally going to be sort of incomplete, like our particular mechanism to come in contact with an experience. So therefore, this is, you can say, the imperfect sense, and the result that is produced out of this, when we are bringing our senses in, our imperfect senses in contact with the sense objects, that experience is what is the sensation, which we refer to as the tan matra, and that comes under the adi bhautika experience. So just like there is these three divisions to understand how there are these senses, you can see it this way. There is the ideal ear, okay? An ideal ear has a counterpart, which is the imperfect ear, which is what we have, and that generally extracts or reaches out to extract the sound. So likewise, there is the ideal skin, and we have our own skin, and that reaches out to the touch sensation. So likewise, there is ideal eyes, and then there is the real, so there is the real eye, and then there is the imperfect eye, and we are coming in touch with the sight. And then there is the ideal tongue, which comes in contact with the taste, right? And likewise, we have the imperfect tongue, which experiences the taste. And then there is the ideal nose, and there is the imperfect nose, and then there is the experience of the smell. So what I have done here, I'm just trying to put these into these three categories. So ideal ear essentially is the Adidaivika. And this imperfect sense, which is our ear, which is referring to the Adhyatmika. And the sound that we are coming in touch with, this is our Adi Bhautika. So this is like one layer of understanding. The another dimension of the understanding is coming into play when we bring another three aspect, which is basically the sensation, then the element, and the sense. So this sense is more to do with the capacity that our senses have. Like every sense has a limited sort of capacity. Like we hear in a particular auditory range, we see only certain wavelength of the light. So in this way, there is a particular scale in which we sense things. So we have our own scale in which we are sensing things. So if you bring that aspect as well together, then what we get is this picture. Just draw that picture for you. So therefore, now we have essentially the example would be, so this sensation is what we just refer to as the tan matra, and the element is so example was the sound, right? And the element that is carrying the sound is the ether, for example. And the sense here that is actually carrying the element of sound in a particular scale is the experience that we are actually getting. So this is more like a sound scale. So if you put this in together, this is the overall picture we get. So go to the previous one. So the picture would look like this. So sound is giving rise to ether. Okay. Then touch is giving rise to air. Sight is giving rise to fire. Taste is giving rise to water. And smell is giving rise to earth. And from our perspective, so this is actually having a certain sound scale that we experience. This has got a touch scale. This has got a sight scale. And this has got a taste scale. And this has got a smell. And if you continue with the creation process, the creation actually takes place exactly like from subtle to gross. So from the sound, ether is generated. In other words, from our perspective, there is a desire to experience the sound of a particular quality, and therefore that desire is what actually gives rise to the generation of the actual element from where we can experience the sound. So this is subtle. So this is subtle, and this is gross. But it is progressive degree. So from sound, it gives rise to ether, and that ether gives rise to touch. The touch gives rise to air. The air gives rise to sight. Sight gives rise to fire. Fire gives rise to taste. Taste gives rise to water. Water gives rise to smell. So this is the overall map of all our experiences that happen in this our perceptive reality. Now here Krishna is saying that if you pick any element, let's say you pick water here, okay, the essence of the water is felt within the, or essence of the water is experienced through the taste. And this taste is what is actually Krishna is identifying himself as that which is actually making the water a substance that is actually palpable for us. Or he is that essence that is making the water actually behave like water. So I just wanted to give you this picture so that you can put this understanding within this overall roadmap of the entire Vedic creation. So therefore, like now when we come in contact with any of these elements, we can see that Krishna is simultaneously the origin as well as the essential experiential factor behind those elements. And therefore, then we don't have to worry so much about those conversations like what is this whole taste. So taste is essentially more about the factor of experience that is contained within the water rather than saying that the water is actually fundamentally tasteless. But there is still an experiential factor associated with water. So why is Krishna actually establishing himself as this unmanifested essence of this manifest reality? It's just to give us an opportunity to make connections. Make connections in the sense that so Prabhupada gives this very simple way of realizing Krishna. So when you are drinking a glass of water. So now, if you are remembering this particular verse that Krishna is saying, I am the invisible essence within water, I am the real taste within water. So when we are drinking water, we can immediately become conscious of Krishna. We can remember Krishna in very, very simplistic terms. Because after all, that is the essence of the whole Bhagavad Gita, how to actually strengthen our awareness of ourselves and our connection with Krishna. So, if with the simplest act of just drinking water can remind us of Krishna, then that much easy the spiritual discipline will become. And likewise, when we go out and then we experience sunlight, or we are under the moonshine in the night time, and we remember, oh, Krishna is the light of the sun and the moon. We are making a personal connection with Krishna, just while remaining within this material world, while remaining within the confinement of all these varieties of limitations and constraints that this material energy puts up upon us. But our remembrance of Krishna doesn't need to be constrained by those limiting factors of this material world, because all we have to remember is this, that Krishna is the light of the sun and the moon. Now, when it comes to Om, within Vedic sound, so far what we have covered is that for as far as the material elements are concerned, we can see how those sensations of the Tanmatra, or which gives the essence of those elements, Krishna is saying that please try to remember that I am that essence. Now, there are still some interesting points that we can discuss about the other examples, the other 10 examples that Krishna gives, which are not necessarily just the material elements or the building blocks. So, like Krishna gave example of the Vedic sounds. So, within the Vedic sound, Om gets its most prominence because Om is considered to be a very open-ended sort of mantra. Open-ended mantra in the sense that Om represents essentially the Brahman aspect of the absolute truth. And because it represents the Brahman aspect of the absolute truth, it is generally can be very flexible in referring to any of the personality that is identified as the worshipable reality. So when we say Om Namah Shivaya, then that Om carries the meaning of referring to Lord Shiva. When we say Om Ganeshaya Namah, the Om carries the meaning of referring to Lord Ganesha. But when we say Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya, then Om refers to the Supreme Lord Vasudev. So in this way, Om carries the flexibility in being directed towards any of the personalities. And therefore, Om is sort of all pervasive within all the Vedic sounds. And therefore, Krishna is saying that know that Om is essentially me. I am that essence presenting in the form of the Om. So generally, because Om is not directive, so when we want to build a personal connection with the Supreme Lord Shri Krishna, Hare Krishna Mahamantra is preferred because there is a more directed meaning that is brought out within the mantra. It is not undirected like in the case of Om. So when we say Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So then it is very directive because Hare Krishna, Rama, they're referring to different personalities with whom we are trying to build connection through the chanting process. And therefore, generally, we when we chant, we try to personalize it in order to make the meditation even deeper. And that is why, for example, Dhruva Maharaj, he received the mantra Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So Dhruva Maharaj was not just chanting Om, but he was chanting Om Namah Bhagavate Vasudevaya. In other words, it is directed towards Lord Vasudev. And because of which, at the culmination of his meditation, he was able to come face to face with Lord Vasudev. And therefore, he was able to to experience that loving connection with him. So, in other words, Om, although it's a more like an all-pervasive sort of mantra, generally, in order for us to bear fruit within the meditation, it is better to always direct it towards a particular personality whom you are invoking as a part of your meditation. Okay. Then other examples that Krishna gives is human beings. So human beings, they are known for their abilities. So unlike other species of life, human beings particularly are known for challenging their potential. They always try to not be satisfied, to remain within uh, the confinement or the limitations that are imposed upon them. And they're always trying to transcend something. And that's why we see that all these scientific inventions and discoveries, they're all about trying to transcend some boundary or sort of relieving themselves of some kind of binding that is enforced upon them. Like, for example, we came up with this whole mechanism to fly in the air, just like the birds. So we invented airplane. So we realized that, okay, we cannot fly like birds, but we can come up with certain tools which can give us the same kind of ability to sort of challenge our limitations. In other words, this ability within the human being is always to challenge the different varieties of constraints that are put forward by the conditions around us. Now that ability of the human beings to challenge the limitation reaches its ultimate potential when we are actually realizing our position as a spirit soul, because that's when we are experiencing the ultimate degree of freedom. Because the soul then is no longer uh, is put under the constraints of this body. The soul is able to live freely and is able to experience its relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and able to openly express that. So right now, the body, whether it is gross or the subtle body, it's just acting as a limitation. Just like a person is put in the prison house, will have certain curtailed degree of freedom. So likewise, when the soul is incarcerated within the body, it's just like the soul is imprisoned, and therefore it's not able to experience its true joy, true experience of eternality, knowledge, and bliss. And therefore, the true experience of the soul or the ability of the human beings, when it reaches its highest potential, it is when the soul recognizes its relationship with God and is able to act within that relationship. So that ability, Krishna is saying that I am that essence, that ability of the human beings to challenge the status quo. And we said that the smell is again like a tan matra, which is giving essence to the element earth. Likewise, heat in the fire. And then Krishna is the life of all that lives. So whenever we find any living object, so Krishna is saying, I am that life-giving source for that living object. I am that essence. And when we are coming in touch with a tapasvi, an ascetic, what makes that person an ascetic is the penance that that person is going through. Krishna is saying, know that I am that essence of that ascetic. And likewise, Krishna is identifying himself as the original seed-giving father. So later on also, Krishna is going to bring this point about Aham Bija Prada Pita. Krishna will later on speak in the Bhagavad Gita that he is the original seed-giving father. So here also, Krishna is saying the same, that wherever we find existences, so where did that existence start for that particular object? Krishna is saying, I am the original seed. Because when we try to dig deeper, let's say we pick an apple. We say that, okay, where did the apple come from? We say, okay, apple came from the apple tree. Where did the apple tree come from? So we can say, okay, apple tree came from ultimately the seed of an apple tree. Okay, now where did the seed come from? So we'll say, oh, seed came from an apple. So we just go on and on. It's like a chicken and egg problem. So where does it all start? So Krishna is saying, I'm the original seed of all essences. So Krishna is the ultimate conclusion point. And so that those all these sort of infinitely regressive sort of answers can be settled ultimately in Krishna, because he is the essence. And likewise, if we find a person who is intelligent, what is the essence of that intelligent person? Is the intelligence. Krishna is saying, I am that intelligence. And technically speaking, Krishna has four manifestations. Vasudev, now this is a technical point. Krishna has four expansions. Vasudev, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, and Aniruddha. These are, you can say, the immediate expansion of Krishna. So generally, Vasudev is, you can say, the in charge of Mahatattva, which is kind of the basis for morality in the overall creation. Sankarshan is the basis for ego, which is the seed for all kinds of intentions. Intention. Pradyumna is the master or the superintendent of the intelligence. And so intelligence is the basis for the belief system or the value system that we may carry. And Aniruddha is the superintendent of the mind. Mind is the basis for, you can say, all kinds of conceptions. So overall, we are always surrounded by, so sensations are the senses, so sensations, conceptions, value system, intention, and overall morality. That's what we are dealing with. And there is a personality that is in charge of each of these. So when Krishna is saying, I'm the intelligence of the intelligent, we can also sort of understand that as the expansion of Krishna, Pradyumna, being in charge of that intelligence. And likewise, Krishna is saying, I am the power of the powerful. And the power, Tejas, Tejasvinam Aham. When we find a person very powerful, where is that Tejas coming from? That effulgence. You can also say effulgence of the effulgent. Where is that coming from? That's coming from Krishna. And likewise, Krishna is the strength of the strong that is devoid of passion and desire. So balam balavatam chaham kam raga vivarjitam. So generally, in this world, strength is used to exploit others. Whenever somebody gets some power, what happens typically is that power is used to lord it over other people. But Krishna is saying, I'm not that kind of strength. I'm the kind of strength that is desire, that is devoid of Kam and Raga. So Kam refers to passion and Raga refers to the desire. Actually, other way around. Sorry. Kam refers to desire and Raga refers to passion. So usually these are the two forces that keep us very active within this material world, because we are busy in trying to establish our sovereignty within this material world. We are always looking to establish our supremacy over something or someone. So when we recognize that I am simply an eternal spirit soul, an insignificant part and parcel servant of Krishna, then what happens with that kind of understanding is that exploitative tendency gets removed. Then we use our strength in meaningful ways in how to actually uncover our reality rather than trying to exploit others. So Krishna is saying, I'm that kind of strength of the strong, which is free from such exploitative spirit. And then Krishna is saying, I am also the desire or sex life which does not violate religious principles. So here, Prabhupada gives a beautiful explanation about this in his purport. So Krishna is saying that the sex life, according to religious principles of dharma, should be for the propagation of children, not otherwise. The responsibility of parents is then to make their offspring Krishna conscious. So here Krishna is bringing out what is the true role of a parent, what is the true role of husband wife. Of course, we should not engage in illicit relationships. That clearly is going to be in violation of religious principles. But Prabhupada is bringing out another deeper point. The deeper point that Prabhupada is bringing out, that even within husband-wife relationship, when sex is directed towards creating qualified children, then the purpose of sex life is fully achieved. So that power that we have been given to reproduce is not meant to be abused for just our sense gratification, but it is meant to further good quality or good progeny. And that is why in the Vedic scriptures we find that whenever a particular qualified soul receives an instruction to produce a qualified progeny, that person usually goes through some level of austerity. And austerity is just so that they can have the power to invite a quality soul into the womb of the mother. So, for example, Kardama Muni was directly instructed by Lord Brahma, because he is one of the progenitors, to create good progeny. But in order to beget good children, Kardama Muni went through many, many years of austerity. And then he married Devahuti. And then from their combination came Kapiladev, who is an incarnation of the Supreme Lord. So likewise, generally the parents are advised to go through what is called Garbha Dhan Sanskar. So it is, Samskar is generally an impression or intention that is expressed in a ceremonious way, that I want to go into this sex life with a desire to achieve a good quality soul. And if the parents are actually going through the Garbhadhan Sanskar, then what's going to happen is that a very suitable soul will get attracted to the womb, and one will get someone that one can train further in spiritual development. And Krishna is saying, I am that kind of desire or that kind of sex life, which is generally going to create a good progeny. And when there is a good progeny, then automatically it will gear towards a healthy and peaceful sort of society. So the whole arrangement is all towards how to create an atmosphere where we can conducively engage in God consciousness. Okay. And then finally, in this section, Krishna is pointing out that whatever we find, whatever states of existence we find, they generally belong to three categories: goodness, passion, and ignorance. They are called modes of nature. So, modes of nature are GPI: goodness, passion, ignorance. So, these are, you can say, the most fundamental elements which then give rise to the elements, that the building blocks that Krishna had talked about in the um, third verse, that bhumi rapanalo vayu khammano buddhir evacha. So fourth verse. So ultimately everything is coming from this goodness, passion, and ignorance. So sattva, rajas, and tamas. And Krishna is saying that all that you find in this world, which either fit within the category of sattvika or virtuous or rajasic or passionate or dark or ignorant states of existence, Krishna is saying they are all sourced in me. And then Krishna is making an important clarification that na tu aham teshu. I am not personally present within them. Rather, they are in turn resting in me, te mai. In other words, Krishna is the one who is empowering his creation with these fundamental elements of the modes of material nature: the goodness, passion, and ignorance. So, goodness, passion, and ignorance, these modes can be thought of like just like a tenuous force all around us, like like a you can say an invisible form of energy that is all around us, that continuously interacting with our consciousness. So there is so this is the modes of nature. So modes of nature are continuously influencing our consciousness. And simultaneously, the modes of material nature, they are also making their presence felt in different elements of creation. So modes of material nature is there in every single object that we find. And modes of material nature is also getting into the time of the day. Like there is a certain time of the day that is bringing out a certain quality of nature. Like the morning time typically is generally considered to be in the mode of goodness. The midday is more like the mode of passion, and the night time is more like in the mode of ignorance. So modes of material nature also influences the time of the day. This is not absolute time, but the time of the day. So modes of nature in this way, they are there within every single aspect of the creation, and it is simultaneously influencing our consciousness. So therefore, when we are, let's say, when our consciousness is influenced by a particular mode, let's say mode of passion, and when we come in contact with an object which is also sort of surcharged with the mode of passion, let's say what could be an example? Let's say a rock music. Okay, a rock music. So rock music has a lot of passionate energy, and let's say our consciousness is also um, at a particular given moment influenced by the mode of passion. Passion means a desire to enjoy. a strong desire to enjoy. So this is strong desire to enjoy. Um, the sattvic generally means a desire to serve, and generally the tamas is basically desire to sleep or to, yeah, we can say desire to sleep or rest or hide. So generally, like when our consciousness is in the mode of passion, which means there is a strong desire to enjoy, we are coming in contact with an object like a rock music, and we will be like jumping up and down, and just trying to enjoy. And particularly if the rock music is happening in the night time, that's also kind of favorable uh, to kind of accentuate that experience within that. So this is just an example to show how these three things are coming together: the time of the day, the object that we are interacting with, and the consciousness, the particular infected consciousness that we bring in contact with that object. And that gives rise to an experience or the state of existence within the matter. And Krishna is saying, know that I am that source of that experience. And Krishna is saying, I'm not personally present within these modes of material nature, but rather these modes of material nature are completely resting on me. And in this way, Krishna is the essence of everything. So I just concluded this section of how Krishna is the essence of everything. Now, a key question can be raised that if Krishna is the source of everything, why can't we see him? Why can't we perceive the presence of Krishna in everything? And that's the next section. And then Krishna is going to give a magical formula by which we can actually perceive Krishna. So I would like to stop here for today and see if you have any question or comment. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I have a question. So, in terms of, uh, I think you did an amazing job of kind of explaining how Krishna is the essence of everything between all our senses and the modalities of sense that we have. Um, the one question I had was, it's kind of an awkward question too, is about sex and procreation. So is the purpose of sex purely for procreation, for having children, or is it beyond that as well, per the Vedas or per the Bhagavad Gita?
Yeah, as per the Vedas are concerned, the purpose of sex is for procreation. And that's why we don't find a single example in our Vedic scriptures where they were just enjoying sex life for the sake of sex life. They're always producing enormous amount of progeny. The situation with the modern world is that we want to contain population. And because we don't know how to manage a large number of children. But in Vedic times, they were quite capable of managing a huge number of children. So they would just allow sex to naturally give rise to children. And because they are also capable, like, for example, we find uh, Rishabh Dev has how many children? 100, right? Um, Kauravas, how many Kauravas? 100. Um, Likewise, we find Daksha. Daksha has got like numbers, like huge numbers, 10,000, 20,000, like that. These numbers are mentioned. Now, what happens is that in the modern times, we are ready to accept sex as a natural impulse, but we are not ready to accept the outcome of that natural impulse. In other words, then we want to invent mechanism in trying to control by using contraceptives, and to take it to another extreme, engaging in killing babies within the womb in the form of abortion and so on and so forth. But actually, if you are ready to accept the fact that sex is a natural impulse, then you should be also ready to accept the natural outcome of that natural impulse, which is the children. So why are you not ready for accepting the children that is coming out naturally? So if you're only accepting sort of the half truth that it is natural, that sex attraction is natural. So that's great. Attraction is natural, but take it to the next level where you're also ready to accept the responsibility of that natural pleasure giving activity. So Vedas are extremely clear on that respect, that that every action that a human being is meant to take part in, it is surcharged with a spirit of responsibility. Human life is a life of heavy responsibility. Unfortunately, when we are just living a life of hedonism, responsibility is always like put in the corner, and we just want to have that experience of the pleasure, and we don't want to have a responsible life. And that's why we find also typically young couples, they enjoy their romance quite a bit, because they don't have to accept any responsibility. They just want to uh, move around from um, one person to the next without actually having a sense of bondage, that okay, I am committed to you, you know. So that period is great, because I don't have to accept any responsibility. But the moment the question of marriage comes, you know, that becomes a big challenge, because now you are taking one step further to sort of enter into some sort of commitment and responsibility. I have a friend like who was sharing with me very openly that so he had been dating with his girlfriend for a long period of time, you know. And then one fine day, the girlfriend asked him, "So, are you going to marry me?" You know. So that thought is a big thought.
Terrifying.
I have not thought about that. Why? Because until you do not have to take responsibility, it's all fun, you know. Just do whatever you want to do. So
Mm.
Vedic scriptures are not like that. It's about really um, really evoking or bringing out a sense of strong responsibility. Fundamentally, first of all, you accept the fact that you have a responsibility as a human being itself, that you are endowed with a higher intelligence. You're not like animals. You're endowed with higher intelligence, and therefore you should always look for higher knowledge. Just like I was saying, to challenge your boundaries. You have been given enough potential to challenge your boundaries. So why confine yourself? So so likewise, for every aspect within the life, Vedas are just bringing us to an awareness of how responsible human life is.
So, are you suggesting or stating that this is a huge topic of controversy um, at present, especially with the overturning of Roe v. Wade,
Oh yeah, yeah, of course. I mean,
in
there is no
terms of
as far as Vedas are concerned, there is no controversy here. In other words, like the question of abortion doesn't even exist. It's pure killing, you know, like it's the soul has already entered the womb. It's tantamount to murder. That's all it is.
Mm.
It's not even a question of controversy. Now, of course, there are challenges where, like, we are talking about cases when somebody is forcibly raped and all these things. How do you deal with these situations, right? That's the question that can be raised. But
Well,
even then, the
I'm a gynecologist and a urogynecologist, so I certainly deal with issues of contraception all the time.
okay.
But even when you're dealing with issues of fertility, every act of intercourse and sex does not lead to a child. So
Yes,
not that every single time someone's going to have an intimate uh, encounter
yes,
that it's going to necessarily lead to progeny
yes,
and fertilization and a child being born.
yes,
So one is that, so is the intent that with
yes,
every act of intimacy it's to produce. So
yes,
then you have to like really define the period of time, and
yes.
then
Exactly.
it's forbidden to have intercourse at any other time, because then it's
Yeah,
for the
yeah.
sense gratification rather than for procreation.
That's right. I mean, if you want to follow by the book, so let me describe to you what is Garbhadan Sanskar, just so that you understand. So, yes, like if you want to really go by the book, you're supposed to only try once in a month, and obviously typically at the time like that 14th day of the menstrual cycle or whatever, at the time when you know that there is the highest chance,
Ovulation,
the
prior
ovulation. I'm sorry, yeah, ovulation. So Garbhadan Sanskar involves like at least in the Gaudiya Vaishnava um, lineage, what generally the parents are supposed to do is chant 50 rounds before conception, 50 rounds of the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So typically 16 rounds, 16 rounds generally takes 2 hours. Okay. So you can say approximately 6 hours. So 6 hours of sadhana you are doing minimally before entering into conception. So it's a very pretty serious affair.
But the Hare Krishna Maha Mantra hasn't been around for millennia, right? I mean, wasn't this
No,
the
no, no,
mantra
no, 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 no. That's a
by
misunderstanding.
Prabhupada?
No, 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 no. That's a misunderstanding. Hare
Oh,
Krishna Mahamantra originally came from Kali Santaran Upanishad, which states that this is how it appeared. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Iti Shodashakam Nam Nam, Kali Kalmashanashanam, Na Ataha Paratarupaya Sarva Videshu Drishyate. So that particular verse is saying that these 16 names, Iti Shodashakam, Nam Nam, Kali Kalmashanashanam, it eradicates all miseries and all inauspiciousness out of the age of Kali. And
I've
there,
never heard that those
and there,
latter two parts of the Maha Mantra.
yeah. So I'm just that's why I'm quoting. It's Kali Santaran. So Kali Santaran Upanishad has the Mahamantra coming into picture. So it's there within the Vedas, and there it is stated that therefore na ataha paratara upaya sarva vedeshu drishyate. So if you go through all the Vedic scriptures, you cannot find a mantra more applicable to Kali Yuga than this particular mantra. So that's basically, now there are many quotes that I can give you. So this is one of the quotes which is kind of, I'm just trying to prove the point that it's not the Hare Krishna Mahamantra is recent, but it is always there in the Vedas. But then Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, when he came about 500 years ago, who is basically understood to be Krishna himself, but he's coming in the form of his devotee, he showed how to chant the Hare Krishna Mahamantra to bring our life to a perfectional stage. And therefore, he showed what are the formularies to practice the Hare Krishna Mahamantra, which is basically how to chant without offenses. And 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 therefore, this whole Brahma Madhva Gaudiya Sampradaya comes into picture because Prabhupada is essentially bringing the teachings of Lord Chaitanya into the Western world when he came here. And therefore Hare Krishna Mahamantra became the central factor because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu showed how to actually um, uh, practice this Yuga Dharma. This is also considered to be Yuga Dharma in the sense it is the dharma of the age, this particular age. I'll give you one more important quote. This is from Srimad Bhagavatam, which says that Kriteya Dhyayata Vishnu um, यजतो त्रेतायां यजतो मखे द्वापरे परिचर्यायां kalau tadhari kirtana. Now this verse is very significant. You know why it is significant? Because it establishes the yuga dharma for every age. So it says that krite means satya yuga. Krite. Yad dhyayato Vishnum. Dhyayato Vishnum. And then Tretayam. Tretayam. Yajato. Makhay. And then Dwapare. Charyayam. And Kalau. Tad Hari Kirtanad. So this verse appears in the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is basically saying in Satya Yuga, what is the, so this is the Yuga and this is the Yuga Dharma, or prime means for perfection. So for every Yuga, there is a particular prime means for perfection. For Satya Yuga, the prime means for perfection is Dhyayato Vishnu. It is meditation. But meditation on what? Meditation on Vishnu. Tretayam, in Treta Yuga, Treta Yuga, the practice is yajato. Yajato means what? Yajato means to worship with what? Sacrifices. Makhe means sacrifices. So performing fire sacrifices or other kind of sacrifices. Like you know, like Ramchandra appeared in the Treta Yuga, right? You see, like so many Ashwamedh yagyas were performed, right? Because yagya or sacrifices were the prime means for perfection. Dwapare, in the Dwapar Yuga, the prime means for perfection is Paricharyaya. Paricharyaya means you act as a servant of the Supreme Lord in the form of the deity worship. So you do deity worship. So the prime means for perfection for for Dwapar Yuga is deity worship. In fact, if you go to Vrindavan, there is a place where you will find the deity that Nanda Maharaj used to worship. You know, and then in Kali Yuga, the prime means for perfection. Kalau Tad Hari Kirtanam means this Tad is very important. Means that whatever perfection was possible to attain in the previous Yuga, the same perfection is possible through Hari Kirtan. This is chanting the names of Hari. So logically, if you want to now argue, so it is saying that the Hari Kirtan is the prime means for perfection in the age of Kali. Now the question is, which names of Hari should we chant? And therefore, at this point, we give the reference of Kali Santaran Upanishad to say that which name of Hari would you chant? Because the mantras are already given, that these are the mantras which are considered to be the best mantra for the Kali Yuga. Therefore, this naturally leads to the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. This is the scientific way of understanding why Hare Krishna Mahamantra is prescribed for this age of Kali. So this is Srimad Bhagavatam verse and then Kali Santaran Upanishad. When you combine these two together, this substantiates why Hare Krishna Mahamantra.
Okay.
That makes sense?
Yeah, it's very very interesting. It's the new part of it. I don't have a full understanding of it. I understand the perspective that you're putting out through the Vedas. I'm not sure if there's other opinions on it or other means of
So,
exploring it or not. So is the whole notion that all of Hinduism and Vedanta philosophy that is pro-life and not pro-choice, and anyone who's going and being pro-choice is being anti-Hindu, anti-Vedantic, anti religious, just as we talk about with the Catholicism, and there is a evolution of time also, in as you said, there is a population problem now, whereas in the previous years, the millennia ago, there was a scarcity of population. So if you just look at the population argument, it was far more necessary and important to grow your numbers in population back then to survive. So from that perspective, yes, you wouldn't want to entertain anything that may disrupt life. Whereas now there's an excessive population. That doesn't mean you do adharmic things and voluntarily killing people. And I think there's an argument to be made in terms of when
Okay.
something becomes sensate or not. And this is a very, very long drawn political. I think it's made political, but it's religious also. So there's perhaps no simple, easy answer to this
Well,
thing.
no, there is actually, this is the story that we have been told. The problem is that this population is problem is artificially created. In other words, our Earth has actually enough resources to take care of probably as much population that you want to generate. The problem that we are facing is mismanagement, not population. It is the story that we have been told is the population problem, and we are happily kind of accepting that as a problem, you know. But there is mismanagement of resources. That's where the problem is. It's not that the Earth does not have enough resources and capability to manage maybe hundreds of times the population that we have today. So in other words, it's
No, I understand that, but how do you change that course of action, right? If we follow the path that we're following right now, the
yeah,
Earth does not have enough resources,
right,
and
right,
we're causing irreparable damage to the Earth
right,
right now.
right, right.
So
It's the
what we have to do
mismanagement.
is we have to change our behavior and get it to the point where it can provide and
Right,
nourish and generate itself. But
right.
but that's not the trajectory that we're following.
Right, but the thing is that we have to recognize at least that it is not the problem with the population, it's a problem with the mismanagement. And if we recognize that, we cannot give that as an excuse to not follow what has been shared as the prime means for deliverance. My point is that the Vedic instructions are quite emphatic and very clear, you know, but we sometimes overcomplicate it by citing these current situations as excuses, or we say that, okay, let's bring more focus to what the situation is, you know, and then bring more attention and let's postpone these activities. My point is that these things should not be postponed, but rather while the world is going wherever it is going, which we do not have any control over, we try to see how we can actually make the best use of the best bargain. How to make the best use of the bad bargain, not the best bargain, but make the best use of the bad bargain that we have in front of us. But in other words, like the Vedas are, it's not a question of interpreting anything. Like in other words, I can share with you many quotes in this respect, which kind of brings this element of the importance of the chanting of the holy name as the prime means for us to purify our consciousness. There is no question of debate here, you know. It is like an established fact. It's a question of us to try out ourselves and see whether it helps ourselves or not. And that is why this particular chapter began with Gyan and Vigyan. That there is theoretical knowledge, but in order to realize that knowledge, you need to put certain things in practice. Otherwise, it will remain sort of theoretical.
Mhm.
And
If you
and that
forward
is
me
the
the
part that
actual
we need to
Mahamantra, which
emphasize.
or the reference to it, so I could look it up and read it, because I've never come across it before. I'm not doubting that it is there. I'm sure it is there. I've just been ignorant to it for all these years,
That's
so
fine.
I'd love to learn it and read more about it. And one more technical thing, if I may, and I'm sorry if I keep
No, no, no,
going.
no, no, no problem at all. We are.
I'm getting to be old and my eyes are perhaps not as good, but if you're having a black background, maybe use white or something as the ink colors that you're writing with, or
Oh,
if
okay.
you're having a white background, then the blue and the red and the black, all those colors will show so much more easier that it
Okay.
would be a lot easier to read what you're writing. rather
Okay.
than blue on black or red on black. Makes
Okay,
it
let
very
me
challenging.
change it to white background henceforward and use black ink on that. That's a good suggestion. Right now, it doesn't offer me the white color. It just offers me three colors. I can't use black, so the blue and red are the only options left. But thanks for the suggestion. So with your suggestion, I have started putting the verse you probably noted. So
I
this is
did, I
also
did, and that's really wonderful. I hope that wasn't too much extra
no,
work
no,
for
no,
you,
no, no, no,
but it
no, not
actually,
that.
I think it drives that whole point across even
Yeah, yeah,
better. We're able
yeah,
to see the verse, we're able to see what you're communicating about the verse. You're actually able to keep referring to the verse, and we can see it over and over again.
yeah.
So I think it was a very useful thing, at least for me, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. So this is also a great suggestion. That's why I'm going to change it. Thank you for asking.
And maybe make the thickness of your pen a little bigger, a little wider, but we'll see how it looks with the white background.
Okay,
So it's
okay.
not so super thin and fine.
Yeah, I'll check whether it gives me that control. I mean, with time, these things are improving, but there are certain things it doesn't give me any control over. That's the challenge. Like for example, the pen thickness, unfortunately, I don't have control over.
I think primarily changing the colors will be a huge,
Yeah,
huge,
let's try. Let's
huge
try.
benefit, at least for me. I'm not sure if anyone else in the
Are
group.
you seeing over the phone or on a computer, this thing?
I've done it on both. Right now I'm doing it on a tablet, but I've done it on the computer. I tried doing it, and I'm constantly putting glasses on, not just for this, but for other things. But
Okay.
the color contrast also does make a difference.
Okay, sure, sure. Try it on a computer and see whether that actually the font size is still okay or not, if possible.
I think the color pattern is what's going to be the most important thing.
Yeah, I will definitely change that. But I'm just asking that since like already for the past recordings, like we have already used that. So I just wanted to know whether you are able to read if you're using a bigger monitor or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you for your suggestions as well as your thoughtful questions, and we can continue. Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much. So we'll stop for today.